Well, hello, hello. I'm AJ O'Neill. This is not so much Beyond Code Live as it is just me working on work stuff, but I'm going to continue where I left off earlier today. So I kind of got a late start to the day, and so I've still got some hours to put in. And I'm actually really interested in what I was working on anyway, so I might just wanted to get back to it even if I had all my hours put in because I'm that kind of a guy. And anyway, so what I've got to do is kind of finish up some refactoring. Basically, there's parts in the code where we have a guest user and we have a regular user, and up to this point they kind of get muddied, and I think that there's some confusing logic where it's difficult to discern which profile is kind of being assumed. And I think that there actually was a security bug that I found in the last one where there's a condition that you could it was either that you could have not been logged in or have have a share URL and be able to access things, or that if you were logged in, you could access anything even if it wasn't your specific stuff. Now, this would have been at the API layer. Somebody would have had to have been probing and kind of reverse engineer a little bit the way the API is. But anyway, my kind of the overarching task that I have for the month is in large part related to the security aspect, going through, reviewing, and getting these things in proper order so that we can be ready for audits and bigger partnerships and stuff like that. So with that said, for those of you that have joined in, I do have the comments open both on YouTube, the chat, excuse me. I have the live chat open both on YouTube and on Twitch. So when I'm looking over here, that's what I'm checking. I'm checking the chat, and I will just go ahead and get started. So let's see. And also, I will have another window open here. When I'm looking here, it's because I'm looking at logs or some stuff that I'm not ready to throw over here yet, because there's some things that I want to make sure are correct before I let you see them. Okay, that said, the last thing that I was doing, there was this thing with the Box app. I'm trying to remember what it was called. It was like Git app something token. Let's see if we can find it. There it is, right there. So I actually want to replace this. This is a little bit, well, this is tangential. It's not entirely related, but this doesn't need to be wrapped in a promise. This can just be, let's see, let, what was it? User token equal. There we go. We don't need to wrap that in a promise. We don't need to double throw the error. We don't need to resolve it in that way. It looks, wait, yeah, this whole thing is just the whole purpose. Let me check here. Oh, good. Whew, thank goodness. I was about to have a heart attack there, because this was an area where there was a lot of hard-coded values, and part of my incentive to get rid of some of the hard-coded values first was feel a little more comfortable if I decided to do some live coding, because that was something that was a concern for me. But yeah, they're all replaced. So I guess what I could do is just kind of say, I don't know where we have our module.exports. I think it would be just fine just to say box app. Or I mean just app client. I think client box app. That's not the right place to put this. Let me see here. Box app. This is what we should do. Module.exports.client equals box app. That's the right thing to do. Let me jump down here to the bottom, and I should put this down at the bottom. In fact, I kind of want that other one down at the bottom too. I mean, I get the allure of putting it up here, but I could just do this. We could say client null, and then defined later. That way, for documentation purposes, this doesn't screw up the documentation. Where are we at? 241. What was the problem there? Ah, yeah, I wasn't finished with this yet. So get box token. I think what basically I could do Okay, I see, I see. We do have a little bit of wrapper here that does kind of make sense. Get app user tokens. User token, da 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 da. But yeah, essentially, there was a bug fix. This particular API endpoint, or not endpoint per se, but what's the right term? This thingamabob. Let's see. Let ID equals. Let's simplify this a little bit. And I hate ternary expressions. They're the worst. 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 They just make code more complicated. I don't know of any place where ternary they don't actually simplify the code. What do we want? What is this supposed to be? If string, here's what this is actually trying to say. If string is not type of, type of box ID, then box ID equals box ID to string. That's what this is trying to say. And that is much more clear. Box ID. And then we don't need any of this wrapper junk anymore. That can all go away. Cool. And there's a couple reasons that I want to get rid of wrapper junk. One of them is that it can obscure stack traces and errors. If anywhere you're doing a new promise like this, there's a good chance you're obscuring stack traces and errors and stuff. I'm going to look and see what is box client different from box app? I'm confused. Box client, get app auth client. Huh. So maybe, get box client as user. Okay, what's box app then? Box SDK. New SDK. So I don't know what to call this thing. Do we want to call it SDK? And then we also have a client. Is that the more appropriate? Because to me, box SD. Let me go see what they do in what Box does in their documentation. Yeah. By the way, I think it's really important to, if your code is written in such a way that you can live stream it, meaning you don't have hard-coded IDs and that you pull stuff that's non-proprietary logic out into smaller modules and stuff like that, you will have better code. I guarantee it. For whatever my guarantees are worth. You know what I'm saying? Anyway. Node SDK. What does it say? Maintained? Yes. Parity? Full. Oh, great. Basic client, persistent client, app client. Okay, require box SDK. New box SDK equals SDK. They call it SDK. Get basic client, developer token. All right, so they call it SDK and client, so that's what I want to call it. I want to match what they call it. So SDK, box app, let's just call this SDK. And the only place we're using SDK in here is where I'm using it, right? Yeah, so we're just gonna rename this to SDK. That's what they call it. That's what I'm going to call it. All right. SDK. Cool. And I don't know that this is actually constant. I hate const. I don't ever use it. It's stupid. It's just outright stupid. And I have no problem saying that it's stupid because that's how stupid it is. It is unapologetically stupid. Don't call something a constant that's not a constant. What kind of committee does this? All right. Anyway. Just kind of reorganizing things so I can understand them a little bit better. All right. Box private key. Let's see. Do. Alrighty. New box SDK, const, all this stuff. Okay, that is maybe an appropriate use of const, but it's not necessary. Whatever. Right, box client. Okay, I'm just gonna move this stuff around because it makes most sense. All right, if we're doing something like constants, I typically put those at the top, then built-ins. This is kind of how I do it. There's like envs, built-ins, locals, third party. That's how I do it. All right, this is one of the locals. Local libs. This is how I do it in Node. This is how I do it in Go. All right, so there we got a box client, and then this other stuff. These are kind of that's for like my requires and that sort of thing. But then this other stuff, yeah, like this, I'd move this up. I guess just move it up here. Do. All right. So looks like this is all box get app auth client. What do we have here? Get app auth client. So this is a service account. Service account. SA client. I'm going to just call that SA. SA client. Buddy just texted me about picking him up at the airport. We were coordinating that earlier. Just gonna let him know. That's cool. His flight got delayed. Okay, so I think SA client would be a good name for this. App user client, user enterprise, yeah. Okay. Okay, I'm just going to rename box client to SA client. Ooh. Wow, there's a lot of places. And make sure that this is not exported out of here or anything. Service account client. Let's see, why is that? And yeah, I'm not going to go through all of this, I don't think right now. Well, maybe I will, because this would really improve the code, actually, if we... whoa, resolving an error. Wait, resolve an error and throw an error. That doesn't make any sense. Okay, yeah, see, there's stuff like this here where it's like, I don't know, that's... What is this supposed to do? You don't resolve... was this an accident? Like, if you were to ever do something like this on purpose, if you were to resolve an error, you would absolutely need to comment that, to be clear that... Because I think this was a typo. I think that's what this is. Let's see. And it's doing a post to users with data. It's already created the client successfully. So the likelihood that this is an error is really close to 0. I would say. Let me go find out where this function's used. Nowhere. Never used. Literally never used. You've got to be... Okay. Okay, this must be for our debugging. All right, we're gonna get rid of that. Actually, it's a lot easier. Yeah. Okay, we're gonna get rid of all that. Whoops. What's going on? What's going on? Where's my... Why is my system halted? Okay, I'm back. It looks like the stream froze there for a second too. I don't know. What's the meme? There's some meme for that. Something's too strong. Something's too strong. Okay, so all right, we don't need to do any catches. All right, dot then. Yeah. We don't need to do any tries here. We don't need to do any catches here. We don't need to do any resolve. We just need a return. Okay. Essay client. Folders.copy. Essay client. Collaborators create with user ID. Kind of confused. Might have to go back on this a little bit. Oh, it's because it's just inconsistent use of the API here. All right, so this should be let response equals await. And then we don't need any of that. Okay, and then I'm just going to say, no, that doesn't need to be awaited because we're saying as user. Although that makes me a little bit concerned, as user, because box admin user ID, box admin user ID, box admin user ID. Okay, this is just a little confusing, I guess. Because this client should already be set up, and it shouldn't. I mean, it could. Maybe we should have more than one of them, which is totally fine. But why would we need to call as user multiple times? Again, like if this was intentional, this should be commented in terms of saying sometimes the client disconnects. Calling as user reconnects the client. I don't know what the reason for it would be, but there should be something there. We shouldn't have to say as user, as user, as user, as user. And this isn't going to change. Box admin user ID. So let's see. It looks like the only place that it's called is where it's set. So I'm just going to delete this. This looks like junk code to me. All right. Folders, copy. Dot then. Okay, so we can await this and we can get a folder. Let folder equal. So we can go down here, nix that, come back up here, nix that. All right, what about this one? Create with user ID. Again, if we're going to do something, I'm assuming that we have to await this. I don't know why we'd want to do something and then and I'm going to get rid of these because I don't understand it. It makes it difficult to read. I want to be able to very easily read this without having a bunch of weird syntax all over the place. Okay, so this is probably, we probably need to map this because I mean, I'm guessing that it must be that this can be done asynchronously. Or not, rather, asynchronously. It's still being done asynchronously with an await. What I meant is concurrently. Because await is asynchronous. All right, let's see. Maybe we can do this. This is a little bit too long for me to understand what's going on there. Okay. Screw you, Prettier. That's how I defeat Prettier, is I put in a comment, and then it'll make it do what I want. Okay, now that's appropriate. Let's see here. Yeah, this is also confusing because you don't know what this is actually going to add. So this does not work the way that you think that it works. Ternary expressions are bad. Okay, so you have this plus this plus this plus this. Obviously that's going to be something, and then you're saying this or this. It's always going to say live account, because otherwise you'd have to put them like that. See how Prettier didn't remove? That's because that's not optional. So what we would say here instead is just let env equal, and let's just pick a default that we want. So say the default we want is to say that it's staging, and then if live box, then env equals live, and then like that. Except to make this a little bit more readable, I'm going to see here. I'll do this. So I'm not a big fan of template strings. I think they can easily be abused. I still sometimes use them. Alright, replace special characters with hyphens so they will work with storage and syncing. Alright, this is beautiful. This is an absolutely beautiful regular expression. I 100% approve. There's no such thing as syncing. But whatever, just common typos. Okay. RND equals randomish number. Let's see what that does. Now I'm intrigued. Randomish number. What the letter L is this supposed to be? Floor. Precision plus precision. I wish this had a comment. What does randomish number mean? So basically this is going to be at least I guess times 9 times. I think what this is saying is that we want a number that is between 20,000 and 30,000, 31,000. I think. I'm not quite sure. I'm gonna actually run this to see. But this is 10,000. 10 times 10 is 100 times 10 is 1,000 times 10 is 10,000. So take 10,000 times 9, that's 9,000. Okay. Plus 10,000 is 100,000. No, 90,000? 90,000. 90,000, 100,000. So our floor on here is 100,000. no, is, sorry, that's 1090 to up to 90,000 plus 10. So between 10,000 and 100,000. That's what this randomish number is, if I am understanding this correctly. So I'm going to go ahead and just try this out. What do we get for a randomish number? Randomish number. Yeah. So basically, all right. But why? And why not just do, say, math.random times, I guess because we want a minimum of 10,000. Random-ish number. I don't know what this is about. All right, R&D. Whatever. Returns a number between 10,000 and I also don't understand why you wouldn't just do this. What? Unexpected one. What? What are you complaining about? What is this complaining about? Okay, why doesn't it let me use the correct number syntax? I don't know. 2,000 and 100,000. Now, will this go all the way up to 100,000? Let's say that is 1. $90,000 plus 10,000. Let's just make that there. Oh. Oh, no, because it's floor. So you'll never get a perfect... Okay. 10,000 inclusive and 100,000 non-inclusive. There we go. Randomish number. Sure. Okay. And again, whoops. Just forcing Prettier to put these this way so I can read them better. All right, create with user ID. I don't know what that means. Okay, so here, filter, if it's a share, something to share. Sure. And then again, let's just make this really clear and easy to read. And no need to have crazy looking arrows here. I don't know that we actually need to return that. I think we need to await it, but I'm not positive that we actually need to return it, because we don't do anything with it. So we might as well just say no, we don't return it, we just await it. Okay. So wait, what's the, okay, so templates. So we got two types of things here. All right. And then ultimately we're going to return the response, but we weren't. I'm going to have to take a look at this again, the way this was before. I'll just stash the changes. but we had a response here, and I think we just threw it away. Yeah, we totally just threw it away. So let's say, okay, what's the difference between these two? Ah, okay, yeah, I remember to talk about this. Yeah. Alright, so if live, return, we don't need else. Just keep it simple and clean. Whoops. We do need this though. There we go. Nice and clean. Okay, so now I'm going to stash this real quick, and I'm going to go back and look at that and make sure that I didn't change the functionality. Okay, so we had a resolve response somewhere here. Okay, we're resolving that response. Is there anywhere else where we resolve? Resolve. And that's got to be a typo. Okay, so let's take a look at this. Before 74 line to, so it's about 75 lines. Let's take a look at it after. So not that much shorter actually. Just reads a lot simpler. All right, I'm going to double check on where I've got the promise.alls there. Oh, also some of the things that were folded up have now been unfolded. Okay. Alright, so I'm just going to double check on these. Yeah, we're not doing anything with that data. We're just tossing it away. All right. Oh, hello and welcome. But just one question. Are you a real person? Because I see that you already liked, which is fine. You could have already liked. You could have already got some great value out of this. But I know sometimes bots come along and they just like, stay for 5 minutes and leave. So if you are a real person, I'd love to say hello in the chat there. So I'm yeah, I think this is cleaned up appropriately. The only, and I guess we literally just threw the response away. Is that what we did? We get the response here, we use it once. So we do use it once and then we throw it away. And that's totally okay that we do that. But it's just a little confusing with that there. So I'm going to go back, get stash pop, and look at it one more time. Just make sure that I'm not changing the way the code actually works. Oh, you're real. Huzzah. I love it when they're real. Oh. So how in the world do you pronounce that? I'm not even gonna. I give up. 1, 2, 3. What is that supposed to mean? You don't have to tell me if it's your secret identity. Okay. Just new guy here. All right. Well, feel free to ask any questions. What I'm doing is work stuff. The goal for the month is to finish up 2 initiatives that we've started. One is to get all the error handling replaced throughout the app so that that all errors are caught, and another is to make sure that that we're secure, that we've got gateways in place where things are being secured, and that there's few of them, small number of places where authentication and authorization happen, And so what I'm doing here in this function is just I had to touch it for some reason or other. I don't remember why I started looking in here, but there was something in here that I needed to change, or I don't know. Oh, yeah, I was trying to figure out how the SA client was used. So it's a little bit of a tangent, but I thought I'd just go through the function, try to figure out what it was doing, and just try to simplify it. And so I'm just gonna, the last thing I need to do is make sure response here is response.body.id. Yep. So everything looks good. This doesn't have a test for it because, well, very few things have tests at this point. But this isn't even really used anywhere, so it was a good one to just kind of go through and try to see where things lead without too much fear screwing anything up. The reason I came in here in the first place was actually, I think it was to get access to the SA client, because we've got a get app user tokens. Okay, that's on the SDK. And so I was trying to figure out, why do we have this thing wrapped? And oh yeah, I remember now the tangent that was relevant was, I'm getting rid of all of these new promises because we don't need them. There were a couple of bugs in the Box API initially where they didn't. There was a couple of their methods that weren't promiseified, but that was fixed, and we still have. We still have this stuff going on. Error. Not reject. Yeah, we don't need to reject that. Okay, if response, and we don't need a resolve. We can just. So wait, what? I'm so confused. So this, okay, the code as written. Here's a funny thing. The code as written is a little bit problematic, in that it does not guarantee, oh, and I should label these async, even if you don't use async await, which I recommend that you don't until you learn promises really well. From Vietnam. Okay, cool. Well, welcome. So I recommend you don't use await until you understand promises really well, because otherwise you're just kind of giving yourself more burden of learning, because await is more complex than promises. It requires understanding promises plus understanding the types of problems that you can run into when essentially you can reintroduce locking problems and some other problems. So you need to understand promises before you do that. Anyway, but as a signal to the reader, I'm very much in favor of server-side code, and I think browser-side code at this point. You can use async in all browsers. I think they've all had support for several years now, and any support pack updates that run through IT systems, you can just use it. I'm very much against anything that has to be transpiled. But anyway, this has a condition that can never be met. So this will never return if there's not a response.body. So I don't know whether that's supposed to be an error or what that's supposed to be, but that's not. You don't want to have conditions that never come to an end. So let me just get rid of this here. And yeah, we don't need this. I don't know why it does errors, because we're gonna get that message out in the console anyway. So I almost feel like what this needs is an if not response.body, then it throw errors dot create. I just don't know how we could not get a response body. Whoops. And this is not supposed to be like that. I'm just going to assume that that's not a possible condition, because it doesn't make sense. If we don't get a response body, then that should be an error. So that other if statement just didn't make sense to me. I don't think it was legitimate. I think it was an accident. Okay. So let me see if there's anywhere else. Anywhere there's a new promise in here, I want to go ahead and get rid of it, because these are basically just obscuring errors at this point. Okay, so that's fine. What do we want to do? Let response equals await. And then we'll get rid of this one. Yep. And then we just want to return user ID, and we don't have to wrap this. Okay. Oops, what's up? Ah, I need to mark this as await. Again, anything that can return a promise should be marked as await. I mean, as async. Async. Alright. I'll do this one too. Oh, and it's a double whammy. Because we're re-catching and rethrowing. And I kind of just want to shorten that response to resp. And we don't need this extra error. And I'm pretty sure I can get rid of that. I'm going to double check in just a second. And then I need to get rid of this, and then we need to get rid of this. And then we can get rid of this. Although, this begs the question, what... Okay, what was going on here? Because this would never resolve. This would just hang forever. Like this would not come to an end if this is the case. All right, have a cabinet. So I'm not clear on what the desired behavior was here. Else return doot doot doot. Okay, so this we want to be able to break out of the for each at this point, it looks like. So really what we want here is a sum. And we want to await. But we can't do that. That won't work that way. Huh. Alright, let's get rid of this mess. Alright. Count how many file cabinets is paranoid. Count how many file cabinets it's found in the folder. And again, we need to await this, because if we're not awaiting, then it's just, you don't know where those errors are going to go. They could go anywhere or nowhere, and I don't like those odds. Oops. So else return what? And I will look over here occasionally. When I do, I am checking for comments. So I'll try to check Twitch and YouTube. I don't check comments on Facebook. Nobody watches on Facebook. But I put it to Facebook because why not? Okay, let me do that again. Alright, so there we've got the folder. Let's go ahead and again, I'm going to use my little hack to get prettier to make things go down rather than across. Ah, much better. So much better. Okay. So now we do have a kind of strange thing going on here. In that... let's see. When am I going to need to go to the airport? I'm going to need to go... Oh, no, I need to set a timer. Okay. Expected time is 10:44. It's going to take 45 minutes to get there. So set a timer for 50 minutes. All right. There we go. I'm trying to think what's the right way to go about this. Because essentially, you know what I think I'm going to do? We're just going to do entries like this. We're going to nix the for each, and we're going to do a for loop. Let I equals 0, I less than entries dot length. And this is going to slow it down. Like that's one of the things a lot of people don't realize about using await is that you are then putting everything, you're really losing the benefits of being asynchronous. But in this particular case, I think that what we're trying to do here, var folder, oops, excuse my var, let folder equal entries I. I mean, what I'm seeing is that we want to be able to, we don't actually want to go over all of these. There's probably not that many of them. Uh-oh. A number of folders. Wait, what the heck? I'm a little confused here. I'm very much a little confused here. If number of folders is equal to 1, what? I'm going to have to go back and read this. That just doesn't make sense, because the folders are a result of the item entries. So we know how many folders there are by virtue of what the length of the entries is. So if we want to say folder is equal to this, and then we're going to await, let me just expand that out a little bit. Oops, it doesn't like this being here. That's okay. There we go. Fix that. Fix that. Thank you. Magic linter. Then folders plus plus. So what was folders? Count how many file cabinets is found in the folder. This doesn't make sense. File cabinets it's found in the folder. So if the name is file cabinets, I don't get it. I totally don't get what this code was supposed to do. Count how many file cabinets is found in the folder. Okay, boom. We count how many file cabinets is found in the folder. So in this folder, we found all of the entries that are file cabinets. Boom. Okay, clear. Perfectly clear. Now the next bit, if we already know that number, and we're saying if that number is 1, I'm gonna finish this code up with what I think the code is supposed to do. And then I'm gonna stash my changes and I'm gonna review what the code actually did, because I think that this is completely unnecessary. I think what we need to check here is like, this makes no sense at all. Sorry to whoever originally wrote that. I'm sure that there was either a late night or a reason, or the code is morphed over the years, because that happens all the time. But as written now, it doesn't make sense. So this makes sense. If the number of entries, 0, oops. I always put constants on the left. No one ever regretted putting a constant on the left. Put a variable on the left, and in JavaScript, you should be using triple equals. But I've had a case where I accidentally did a single equals, not just accidentally did a double equals, accidentally did a single equals. And then if a variable is on the left, well, guess what happens? What's on the right gets assigned to what's on the left. But if you have a constant on the left, you can't assign it. So this is defensive programming. If there's a way that always works, always prefer that over the way that sometimes works. Always. There's no drawback. Okay. So if we have nada, then we have a fallback. That makes sense. All right. If we otherwise unshift, I don't know, just entry 0, yeah. Get the first file cabinet. If entries.length is greater than 1, console.warn sanity fail. This is not necessarily a sanity fail. I use the term sanity fail for a condition that is an impossible condition. This is not an impossible condition. This is just showing that there was another failure in the system because there should only be one file cabinet. More than one file cabinet found. For, and then what should we be looking at here? Name, where did we query? Folders, copy, destination, company name. Company name, is that what we're looking for? Company name? Where'd company name come from? I'm going to do account ID and company name. That seems for account ID, company name, entries.length. Okay. That sounds reasonable to me. Okay, and then here, folder has already been declared. Where? Folder, folder. Okay, let's call this subfolder then. Subfolder, and then I'm pretty sure what we want here is subfolder. And then we don't need any need to do that. We don't have any need to do that. This makes sense. Okay, cool. Now, what was the name of this function? Create storage account. Okay, so I'm going to get stash, and we're going to look at create storage account again from top to bottom. Try to understand if there was any, and you know, if you're watching, which looks like you are. Hi, welcome. Saw somebody else join. Feel free to call me out on anything that I'm missing. All right. So if you want to make your screen big, follow along, get your eyes on this with me. The question is, so again, this is code that's gone through many hands. It's many years old. We're at the point of trying to slow down, not just crank out features, but really crank up the quality on the code, making sure the errors get caught, making sure that the security is in place, that you know, we're reducing the possible points of failure. So the thing that I'm looking at that's just driving me bonkers right now is, so this represents, it's kind of like Dropbox. It's called Box, but Dropbox is more for the average Joe. Box is more for enterprise. And so Box, we've got some folders, and we have some particular types of folders here. And I'm trying to figure out what is supposed to be returned from this function. And I believe what's supposed to be returned is a type of folder that's tagged as a file cabinet, is how we're tagging it. And so what it's doing is we're letting the number of folders is equal to 0. And then we filter out, we take the entries and we filter out the ones that we don't, that are not file cabinets. So we should be left with only file cabinets. And then this for each is only going to loop over the things that are file cabinets. 100% of the things in this for each are going to be file cabinets. So what's weird is that it's let folders equal 0 and then folders plus plus, because that's going to increment. But then this very first one here, and there's no need to do a plus plus because there's no such thing as pointers in JavaScript, and plus plus is pointer arithmetic. Plus plus is not equal to plus 1. Plus plus is plus 1 pointer. Now, other languages have copied that, and they've turned it into 1, but plus plus does not mean plus 1. It means plus the length of a pointer. So you can have a pointer of a different length. Different structs will be of different sizes. So, and I think this was invented in C. I'm not sure if that's where it was invented, but I think that is. But something plus plus means advanced one length of pointer, which might be 1 byte or 4 bytes or 32 bytes or however. I guess it's not just a pointer, it's advance a struct or a pointer. Anyway, that's beside the point. But I don't like the use of plus plus because it's obscure, and plus equals 1 is, you know, clear. Anyway, so we're adding this, and then we're checking to see if folders equals 1. Well, of course folder is going to equal to 1. Like, that's what it has to equal, right? Except that this could then happen again, which that doesn't make any sense because we could have just done, say, like sum here, and then just do return true, and we would be done. But then this is executing asynchronously, and then this is executing synchronously, so that's kind of a weird read. And then it's totally unnecessary to keep track of the number of folders because you have the number of folders as the number of items. So if you just do let entities equal, yeah, so I'm totally convinced that the way I did it is following the current logic. The current logic is just a result of whatever. It's a result of history that existed in the code. Okay, cool. Yeah, and we don't need any of those rejects. So the reason I'm going through this file right now is this is not on my critical path per se, but I'm just trying to freshen things up as I touch them, as I need to go through them. Whoops, git stash pop, and this had this. I was reaching into this for a particular function. It was actually this function right here. And I was trying to figure out why. And then I see that there's a bunch of promises in here, but they were wrapping code that already was a promise. Or at the time this code was first originally written, it may have required thunks, which is the opposite of promises, the error callback looking thing like this. So this is a thunk. But since then, all client methods return a promise. So, although at one point in time you had to use thunks for a while, I don't know when that issue was closed. I could check it out and see. Let's see, is it now? I don't know. But anyway, probably for a few years now, it's been converted, and so we just have this code. And the problem with having promises wrap promises is that you introduce possible cases where something doesn't resolve, meaning that it just hangs there and nothing ever happens. And you also are potentially obscuring your error messages. So if an error gets thrown and then you catch it and reject it, you might lose some of your stack trace. And so it's much better to use to not use promise wrappers unless you really have to, because you don't want to lose your errors to the ether and then get a stack trace that just ends in the middle of a library, which happens all the time and makes debugging hard. So anyway, I think that this code in this file, I mean, this thing's long. It's almost 1,000 lines long, so it is. It is not itty bitty. And since this is already so long, again, that's my little trick to make Prettier reformat the code correctly. And if you are not using Prettier, webinstall.dev, go there and check out what's there. Particularly if you're using Vim. webinstall.dev/vim-essentials if you're using Vim. If you're using VS Code, definitely make sure you've got Prettier, npm install-g Prettier at latest. If you don't have Node, webinstall.dev/node, get Node. But you should not be writing code without using Prettier if it's web development. If you're using Python, I think it's called Black Mamba is the equivalent of Prettier for Python. Hello, just stopping by. Still a noob in JS, but wanted to check out how professional worked live. Well, I am not your typical professional. I will tell you that much. But I am a professional. And this is not professional code in the sense that this is old code that I'm working with that was written by very junior developers who were just this is from a startup company, and this code has been around since the early stages, and so I am refactoring to make the errors, to make it so that I know that all errors are either being caught or being handled in some way. and to make sure that our authentication, which is what I was originally going to be starting on, but I had to go into this file, making sure that our authentication has as few gatekeeper points as possible, because you want fewer points of failure. And I'll show you a really neat trick that I use that works in any language, whether you're doing JavaScript, and this is all Node, this is all back end. I code a little bit differently in front end than back end. In front end, I'm much more conservative. I do not like transpiling. I do not use anything that requires transpiling in a browser that I'm targeting. I'm not a full stack developer. I don't do any CSS. I am a full developer, and so I do JavaScript on the front end because I do stuff on the front end. Anyway, but yeah, in just a minute, I'll go and I'll show you the trick that I use to make the code more secure. And this is something that everybody should do. This should be something that's taught in boot camps. This should be in beginner tutorials. It's not, but it should be. And I'll show you in just a minute. I'm just going to get rid of some of these. We've got these error wrappers here, and they don't even serve a purpose. They're just there because that's the way the code was, and it just changed from one hand to another. Okay, so this one looks like it actually is doing something important here. Yeah, so that's actually handling the error properly. Okay, well, as properly as it can. This one, no, we should just throw. We don't use promise reject where it's not necessary. Okay, wait, hold on. Let me look at this again. Okay, so what this says is, if it's a 409, throw the error, essentially is what they're saying. Otherwise, throw the error. Just delete the whole thing. It doesn't do anything. It just rethrows the error, which just, again, introduces issues. Now, I was doing a little bit of logging, but the way that the new error system is, the logging happens further up. So we don't have to worry about that. All right, I'm probably going to go a little bit deeper into this file. It's 1,000 lines long, so just to show what I was talking about earlier, I'm going to go back into the routes here, and I'm going to show you what I do for security. So this is what everybody should do. So I use prefixes. If something does not require authentication, then it goes to /public. So everything here starts with /API. You just don't see that because this is down. This is the API routing file. So everything in here starts with /public or /webhooks. /webhooks is for bespoke authentication, meaning just custom authentication that happens with third-party services. So if third-party service needs to do something over on our side, it comes in through a webhook. So all webhooks and all webhooks have custom authentication that's based on the system. So whether it's Stripe or it's Box or whatever, those are all custom. So there's no standard for that because it's all different. Public, no authentication. Webhooks, custom authentication. All right. Then we come down here a little bit more. We have unlisted. This is basically guest. This is where somebody has a token to get access to a resource, or the resource is identified by a URL, where just like with YouTube or with Google Drive, where you've got that long string at the end and you can mark a Google Drive document as unlisted and then you can still share it with anybody you want. Same kind of thing. So this means that there's either a code and a query param, or there's a token in the URL, and the guest user gets some sort of privilege. Like, for example, a document can be shared with them by virtue of having the link because the person that owns the link gave it to them. That's what unlisted is for. And then we have account, which, yeah, we're a little bit further down here. I passed through where the authentication step actually happens. But we have account, and anything that's under account means that the user has to be logged in. So if the user is not logged in and has an account selected, so think you go to YouTube, you go to Google, you go to anything, you log in, it says, okay, which channel do you want to use, or which page do you want to use, or which account do you want to use if you have multiple accounts. That's what this is. You have to have selected an account. And then /user is you have to be logged in as a user. So you have to have an ID token or an ID-based session. And so that is how this is kept secure. And I'm narrowing it down so that everything funnels through those, because we had lots of different endpoints before, and they all had different authentication methods on them. And so I did a big push earlier last month, or actually it was a couple months ago, to start to streamline that. And now I'm going to the next phase with it and streamlining it further. So we have very few points where authentication happens, because the fewer points of failure you have, the more reliable your system is. So anyway, I'm going to go back to this file and just kind of go through here again and see if I can pick out anywhere there's a promise. Promise.all is fine. This is the kind of thing I want to get rid of. There should not be a... we should not be rejecting a promise. We should be throwing, not rejecting. Inside of a promise, you throw an error. You reject an error only if it is a wrapper promise. You don't reject. You just throw. And you're going to preserve your stack traces and stuff better. Okay, so I guess all we really wanted to do here. This is a good scenario for await catch. No, because return. I always like to do return await if it's async, to just as a marker to say this is async and I know it's async and I'm doing this thing on purpose. Let's go ahead, and I don't like arrow functions. They're not easy to read. Okay, so error in get metadata. So if it's 404, that just means it's not found. What in the world? What? I hate this ninja crap. I don't blame the people that wrote it. I blame the people that taught it to them. So I think this should be... I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. They want to make sure that it's a string, because I guess sometimes it was a number, or they weren't sure if it was a number. That's totally fine. I understand that. But doing this, please don't do this. Don't do weird stuff like this. Just, if you need to cast something to a string, cast it to a string. I hate ninja code. I hate it, hate it, hate it, hate it. No one ever regretted not being a ninja. Okay, that's on my quote board. Hold on just 1 second. I need to look at something over here. Yeah. No one, you'll never meet someone who says, you know, I wrote this code that was really readable, but I regret it. I wish I wrote it like a ninja and used all the weird stuff. No one ever said that. Not one. Okay. Let me go look. So that looks perfectly right. This is the perfect way to handle an error. You catch it. If you can do something about it, you rethrow it. And otherwise, if you can do something about it, then you return whatever it is that you want to have instead, and a new object, a null, a not found, whatever, or you rethrow the error. That's a good way to do it. All right, promise all, and then I'm just going to get rid of arrow function and make sure it's clear what this thing actually is supposed to be. Is it that? Yeah? Okay. There we go. We want to be reading from top to bottom, not from left to right. That is a mark of seasoned software engineering. The more reading top to bottom, you know, it's steps. You don't want to have to read a whole ton from left to right. And so when you see me do this, by the way, I'm just tricking Prettier into making the code formatter, making it put things on the next line rather than putting them all in one. Okay, does that look right? Yeah, that looks right. Okay. And I think that's a async function, right? Yep. Okay, so I should do that. I should probably do this here as well. You won't see hardly anybody use return await. I use it because it's a good signal. Again, it's one of those things no one ever regretted doing it. Because you go and you change something and you get rid of the return and then you forget that it was an await and you start putting code below, you know, and it causes errors. But if you do the return await, you'll never regret it. Okay. All right. Give me just a minute. Okay. It is time to go put my daughter down to bed. So I'm going to just see if there was any more of these that I can get rid of real quick. Promise all is just fine. We just don't want promise rejects or new promises where we don't absolutely need them because they obscure the error messages. Okay, cool. I think that is good. Let me see if there's any console.errors in here. And catches. Yeah, we don't need that. We don't need to rethrow. Let me just get rid of any of these errors where we're rethrowing, because we can just let the original throw do its job. And that one makes sense because it does. This one we're intentionally swallowing the error, which is fine. That we don't need. That does nothing. So this, all .then functions should be asynchronous functions. I don't know of any reason not to do that. And then we might as well just do let doc equal, because it doesn't look like we're using any of the other features that would make that great to do otherwise. Okay, cool. Okay, what else we got? Promise. Oh, catch. Do we have any more catches that we need? I'll take a look at this one. Looks like it's the right kind of catch. That one looks like it's the right kind of catch. That one looks like the right kind of catch. This one I want to take a look at. Oh, this looks like a nasty one. Maybe I'll save that for another day. Okay, that looks alright. Looks alright. Let's see if we got any tries. We've got no tries. No try catches. Okay. So what I'm going to do is, I think I have on here my... Oh, that's weird. Hold on just one second. Ooh, ooh. Huh. Oh, here we go. There we go. I'm going to go put my daughter down for bed. I'll be right back. Let me see. Yep, I still got another 20 minutes or so before I need to leave for the airport. So I'll get this change in. I'm going to do the change set that I originally came in here for, which is going to be basically there's a place where we're treating guest users and real logged in users the same, and I'm just going to split it apart and distinguish, because there's just a couple key points. There's like 10 files where I need to change, I don't know, it's probably 2 or 3 lines per file. I just need to make sure that we're treating guests separately from logged in users, and then most of the logic is going to be the same. So I'll be creating a new function, then adding a check that's separate between guest and logged in users, and then potentially going back and separating out an unlisted, meaning guest API route, and a /user, meaning logged in API route. But I'll be right back. All right, Ben, I'll see you in a bit. Don't let me forget to unmute. strong survive. Okay. Indeed. Sweet dreams, daughter. Real Reels. So, who's still here? I see we still got somebody here. Oh, and I should have said this before I went off for 10 minutes, but remember, if you like what you like, you get more of what you like. So, always appreciate it when you like what you like. Also, if you want to subscribe, click the notification bell for personalized recommendations, and you'll get my code stuff and not my other stuff. I might do a GameCube video tonight on the homebrew stuff. I got somebody who wants me to build him a system and is willing to pay a premium to have me do it, so I'm going to do it. Anyway, where was I at here? We've got no tries left. The catches that we have, there's one that looks a little bit complicated. This one, I think it was. This one looks like it might need some love. Deserve some love. Okay, because it's returning. If we get a dot then, it's returning. Yeah, that makes sense. And then... Anyway, but I'm gonna go back to what I was doing before. Oh, yes. Thank you very much. I do have the chat open on both YouTube and Twitch, so if you ask me questions, I will respond to them, even if they're tangential, though sometimes I say, well, I need to circle back around to that later, or some such. Anyway, let me see if I do git status and remember what it was that I was here for in the first place. I'll probably do git log and check the last one. I remember what it was. So we got some places where we have rec account ID. We got about 100 of them, I think. Let me see here. Yeah. But the problem is rec.accountID sometimes refers to a guest user and sometimes refers to a real user, because sometimes a person can have an access code where they get access to certain aspects of an account and they're not a user. And the problem is that if you try to handle that logic down in the place that might seem most relevant, you know, like, oh, I need to decide, am I going to do this or am I going to do that? All the way down at the bottommost layer of the code, right at the exit condition. Security is something that you want to be at the gateway positions, not at the exit positions. And if you are waiting until the exact moment that you need the account ID to figure out, or in that general area to figure out whether this was a logged in user or whether this was a guest, inevitably you're going to have some mistakes. But if you can push it all the way up top and say, like what I'm doing, which I'll just show again because I think that I don't know who's watching, but if you're one of the people that was here when I already explained this, then go ahead and stop me, and I won't spend too much time on it anyway because I am doing work. But believe it or not, even with the explanations and stuff, I work better when I'm just talking out loud about things, even though, you know, I repeat some stuff or whatever. I feel like I'm actually more valuable when I'm going through this. Anyway, so we've got like a /sudo /impersonates /user /public. Let me go unlisted. We've got /unlisted, which is basically for guests, /public I mentioned. We have /system, /account, So anyway, all of these are gatekeeper routes, meaning that the authentication is decided at the point that the route is entered into. So you cannot get into an unlisted route without a guest token. You cannot get into a /account without having an access token. You cannot get into, well, you can get into public with anything. Public is public. You cannot get into a /sudo without a super admin token, like one of the developers /admins that's managing people's accounts and, you know, fixing things that go wrong in the database or stuff like that. And so by pushing all of that authentication logic up to the top, we have really strong gatekeepers, and it makes it not possible for a large variety of security errors to occur. So anyway, what I'm going to do is this is what I was searching for earlier. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Why am I counting? Why am I counting by hand? That's what we have. We have 9 places currently where I need to make sure that we are distinguishing between a guest user and a true logged in user. And it looks like there are, see, I see box, I see flat feature, I see storage. So there's only 3 files where I have to make these updates. I already did storage, so I'm going to take on the next smallest one first, flat feature. So I'm going to go into this code to figure out where that's being required. So let's see, flat feature. And feature in this, so this was built by people who were very young in their careers, and they just kind of made up names for things as they went because they didn't know what industry standard terms. Feature in this case is, I don't know whether I'd call it like an attribute or a property, but it's basically something like that. And so this is just saying a flat listing of arbitrary properties. It has to do with form building. Anyway, so I need to go up to where this is. There it is, right there. So, /flat feature. There we go. Now, this one is one I haven't been in myself in a while. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to go on the other screen here. And I'm just going to make sure that I don't see anything that stands out to me as potentially sensitive. Because if there was something that was truly proprietary, or something that reveals account tokens. I mean, the proprietary nature of this thing is that we just, really it's that we have a ton of integrations. And you just couldn't replicate all of these integrations in a weekend. But other than that, the database stuff it's just database stuff, just associating things. It's not really that much in the way of super secret magic or anything. Okay, so let's see. How long is this? 300 lines long. I'm just looking at it over on my other screen. I don't see... It doesn't look like anything that I can't share. It doesn't look like, other than the fact that what I'm doing is potentially fixing security vulnerabilities, but they'll be deployed shortly. And if there are any that need to be addressed. Oh, what we got? Oh no, and it is. Let's see. I think I got another 20 minutes. Yeah. I should. Oh, okay. Yeah. What is that? Timer was a different timer. Okay, I need to set a timer because I need to get to the airport. In a little bit. So let's say, yeah, that should be fine. Okay, so I'm giving myself another 20 minutes here. Okay. So what I need is, particularly, I need to figure out what the heck this means. Are we trying to deal with guests? What are we expecting to be able to get from this? So we got a query. So this one looks simple enough. So I think this one, all we're going to need to do is just make sure that we have one that is get guest. And that's probably going to be the only difference between the two. So I'm just going to rename this to get root. And res.result, yeah. And so the way that I like to do this, we're going to bring this in. We're going to bring, I guess, account ID in here. We're going to get rid of res. And then we're going to call await our get root account ID rec. And then we're going to call res.json on result. And then we're going to have the other one. It's going to be just like it. Whoops. So this is going to be rec.form because the current implementation of the guest user functionality is relative to a form. So, There's they basically it's in the process of accessing a document that is a form that they have guest access to an account, and they have guest access to an account for that particular form. And I do need to audit this right here to make sure that it looks like what they're getting. Okay, rec query. Yeah, we're just going to be returning this. I'm gonna hold thoughts for a minute while I look through this. And we're not going to need any of that because we don't want to rethrow errors. We just want to get them the first time. We don't need try. I've said this before. I'll say it again. I'll probably say it in every single video. Try catch. I'll probably say it 3 times in every single video. Try catch is a code smell, in JavaScript at least. If you have try catches in your JavaScript, you're most likely doing it wrong because there are very few instances where you should be using try catch, and you probably don't have them, especially as a new developer. You should be using the await catch, or you should be considering what you actually intend your code to do, because you probably don't need an actual try catch. Anyway, so the thoughts I was having earlier was I'm trying to figure out what type of information. So we got let key and rec.query query key split. Okay, this is okay. That's being safeguarded. Wherein okay, this should be parameterized, but I'm a little bit wary. Yeah, that key should be, yeah. Because the framework that we're using, almost every framework for SQL at this point, I mean, it'd have to be a really dumb, stupid, backwards framework to not automatically escape. But you still want to be careful occasionally, well, not just occasionally, every time you're passing strings to SQL, especially if it's ever raw. You don't ever want to pass raw straight to SQL unless you really have to, and you've got a second pair of eyes to look on it. Because even someone experienced, I myself have made SQL injection mistakes where, it's just good to have a second pair of eyes and be like, oh, you forgot to do this. I'm like, oh, dang it. Yes, I did. Oh, so stupid. So silly of me. But anyway, so I'm just checking this out, making sure we're not having any SQL injection vulnerabilities there. And it doesn't look like we are, because we could have an attempt, but by using wherein, this is going to sanitize those inputs. All right, so if we don't get a length back, then we return. That makes sense. Get rid of all that arrow function voodoo. Okay. Also, reduce most often. I mean, there are times when you actually want to use reduce, but usually you don't. Like, I don't know. I think this is an alright use of it. But I don't know that it's super clear. I mean, I guess it is. It's called dict as in dictionary. But... Oh, hello and welcome. I'm just going through some code, making error handling and user authentication handling or authorization handling more streamlined. Anyway, I'm on the fence about this because I've heard other people complain about it, and I don't see that it's particularly useful. Like, so for example, this is the alternative way to write this, would be to do this and then do a for each, and then boom. That makes sense. Oh, whoops, except you'd call this dict. Or you'd call these resources. So, I don't know. Like, I don't know. It's 6 of one, half a dozen the other. But I'm leaving it there. Except I'm gonna just return this directly because no reason not to. Okay, So while I'm in this file, as I'm going through the files, I'm just kind of cleaning them up, just in general. There's certain things I like to put down towards the bottom. I don't know why. I just do. But I do have a style that I like, which is environment variables, built-ins, local libs, third-party libs, and that's the same way you'll see it in Go. Environment variables would go after those other things, but you'll see that it just seems to be a common convention. And then putting things alphabetically. In this case, I don't really want to bother to put them alphabetically. One day I'll do that. But there should be an automated tool. If you know of an automated tool that will just alphabetize your requires in JavaScript, I'd love to know about it, because it seems like it should exist. All right, so I'm just going to go through here. This was the function that I needed to separate out. I've separated it out. Now we have a rec.user account ID and a rec.form.user ID. That's what I was here for. I would kind of like to just say query is rec.query. And that if that's the only reason we need rec, I might just get rid of rec. And it looks like it is. So I think I'll do that instead. I think I'll just pass in query here. Whoops. And then up here, just say rec.query, rec.query. That way, we just don't have the dependency on the whole rec object, because this isn't something that really needs it. Note, query could be malformed, malicious, but will be sanitized. I think I've got spell check turned on. Yeah, I can do. Okay. By the way, Vim spell, if you use Vim, which I recommend that you do, I think, beginners should learn the basics before they advance stuff. And Vim is just one of those basic tools that I think it's good to learn. Vim Essentials, webinstall.dev, look for Vim Essentials. Webinstall.dev is the page. It'll get you up to speed with a Vim config that makes sense without having to learn all the Vim Ninja Foo. That's what I use. Well, I created it, but I just based it on other people's Ninja Foo. Anyway, I just like how that reads better. Yeah, that's good. I'll just put it on one line. Pedantic. Moving on. Okay, so note that. And there's not anywhere else where we're using query. There's nothing else I need to check there. Okay. Oh, and then there's this here. So I also need to do this one. So we'll do the same thing as we did up there, where we will just make two functions. One of them is going to be guest. Let me make sure I actually put those in the right spot, because sometimes I get confused. Yeah, look at that. Burp, burp. You need to do it like this. There we go. Makes sense that the guest... Wait. No, they're both named guest. That's why I messed up. There we go. And then I need to actually export these down at the bottom. So, excuse me while I go down to the bottom of the file. By the way, that is it GG is top and Shift G is bottom? Yeah. Get guest root, and then I think we're doing post query and post guest query. Maybe I should do... I don't know. And this convention is not something that you'll find. This was actually just part of a refactoring effort. I like it, and you'll see this in other projects as they kind of grow and mature. I like all the routes for the API to be defined in one place. And because all the routes were kind of defined here and there, and they were just lots of code and anonymous functions, I used a tool called Comey to be able to do pattern matching on everything, and I moved all of the routes to the bottom of the file, and then I gave all of the routes names based on what parameters were being, or what the URL was, or what was being passed in as parameters. So I automated hundreds of files. I think it was hundreds. I think it was like 200 files. And it was, I had to fix a couple of mistakes, but it was pretty darn good. But what I did to differentiate the route functions from other functions is I just prefixed them with R. So they're named not on purpose, but by tooling. I used automated tooling to get that done. Anyway, let's go back up to our post query. I think that's where we were at. Yep. And so we need our post query and our post guest query. And then we need this one. And then they're all going to be asynchronous, I'm sure. All express functions should be asynchronous. And you should be using async router, which I've linked to in other videos. But if you want me to link to that, it's at root/async-router. That will save your bacon, and you will love it. If you have been using Node at all, if you have to use Express because you're working in legacy code or because that's the only thing you were ever taught, Express is certainly not the best, but it is what's most popular. The sad thing about it is it was never finished. It was kind of abandoned, and there's commits from 5 years ago that if they'd just done a few more commits, then we would have had the complete Express, and it would have had support for async routing and all that. But so the cookie crumbles. Anyway, let me go back up and check this real quick. Okay, that's what I was doing there. Good, makes sense. So we're going to call res.json on some result. We're going to get that result from let await our post query. We're going to pass in rec.user.account ID and maybe rec. I don't know. We'll find out in just a second. And then this one's going to be, whoops, let result equal await. There we are. And then this one's going to be the same, except for I'm going to look for form because that is currently how we're doing guests. And it's super easy to find and replace on something. Like once you've got things isolated and separated, if you need to change the name through 100 files, there's tools to do that. I use SD. The built-in tool is called sed, but webinstall.dev, you can find SD there. It's easier to use in the sense that it's just more modern, and it uses the modern regular expression syntax, and it has a nice string mode, and it's a good tool. Okay, so this is what we need: account ID and rec. We will not need res. And then let's figure out what rec is doing here. Okay, so rec is doing a where. Rec is doing a select. Whoops. Is that it? So those the things that rec can do? Let me start from the bottom and work my way up. Rec select, rec where, rec where. Okay, so here's what we're going to do then. We're going to pass in where and select, and we're going to do let's q equal rec.body, and we're going to do q.where, q.select. And that might be flattening it out a little bit more than it needs to be flattened. Okay, and I do need to double check that we're not, there's no SQL injection. All right, for each where. Okay, so there's multiple wheres. All right. Value, feature type ID. Let's get rid of that arrow. We don't need that there. All right, so if we have a where, then we're going to do this. All right, so this is building the query. I'd actually like to call this builder. Query's fine. I don't know. I prefer builder because that's the object type that it is. It's the object type builder. So just like you see here, and again, there's no need to put arrow functions there. There's very, very, very rare and limited use case for arrow functions. If you have arrow functions and you actually need them, it's probably the result of a problem in your code that you're using this, and you shouldn't be using this. The experts, well, experts is relative, but Douglas Crockford and I both agree. At least. Okay. I just don't like all that. Just make it easy to read, Make it easy to read. All right, so we'll have a select there. Okay, and this is going to be escaped, so this is safe. Return res.result. So that would make no sense. There's nothing to return if you do that. And then what do we need? I think we could do, we'll try a couple things out here. First, let me go through and make sure I've gotten rid of all the... And I'll check the comments in just a second. You'll see when I look that way. I'm checking comments. Okay, got all of the rec stuff out of the way. So there's no more rec, right? Yeah. Okay. And then let's just go ahead and get rid of this because we don't need to rewrap things that we're catching. Okay, that was that. And then we're going to flatten this out because we want to read top to bottom, not left to right. Okay, now I'm looking at comments. All right. Nothing new, nothing new. Okay, interesting. Okay, I got one little thing I need to put in over, where was it? Over here. Okay. Blah, 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 blah. Skip undefined. Okay, I guess that's fair. Oh, excuse me. All right, now let's try to flatten this thing out. So, all right, we're going to have this query. So let's just, oops, I do that all the time. Okay, we're just going to have this. I'm going to go delete that. Then I can get rid of that. Okay, and then let's see, we can do the same thing here. Get rid of that. And then get rid of that. Okay, that's a little bit much. Ha! I love, since I've learned that trick, to make prettier, format things the way I want them. Okay. Again. Okay, what is all this? Ha! Okay, so does this code even work? Oh, okay. One lower. All right, cool. Sometimes you run into those impossible conditions. All right, this looks all right. I'm not really sure what this is supposed to do. I kind of wish this had a comment. All right, if it doesn't exist, then add it. If this doesn't exist, then add it. And then if there is a value, then, okay, I get what it's doing. So basically we're just filling out, if an object is missing certain things, if it's missing hierarchy, so just fill out the hierarchy. I think that's right. Yeah, this is good. Okay, that makes sense. Alright, skip undefined, got it. Alright, so while I'm in here, I'm going to go ahead and remove any... oh, hello, and welcome. I'm just going to go ahead and remove these try catches, because we don't need to be rethrowing errors that will get propagated all on their own. So a while back, we didn't have good error handling. It was, in fact, we had atrocious error handling. And then I went and I refactored it. Now, all the errors can bubble up to the error handler and the express router. And if you, again, this is another one of those things that I'm going to say 3 times per session, at root / async-router. If you are developing a node and you are not using that, I mean, there may be some other module that I don't know about, but that's the only one that I know of. That is the one you need to be using so that you are catching errors, is at root / async-router. It is the best thing that you'll ever do. And there's a video in the GitHub repository if you land on GitHub rather than in the NPM. I got a video there that explains it. It's very, very simple. It just makes it so that your express routes catch errors and handle them properly by default, and gives a very simple example there. Okay, my timer's gone off, so I'm going to give myself another 5 minutes here and try to wrap this up in that time. And then I got to go. So my goal is, I'm going to check and see, do we have any promise stuff here? Promise.all is fine. Particularly, I don't want to see any promise rejects. And I don't want to see any try catches. Try catches are a code smell. Doop-de-doo. All right. Let's get rid of that. And this looks... other than... Okay, again. Ninja crap. Hate the ninja crap. What they're trying to do here is compare something that might be a number or a string with something that might be a number or a string. The way to do that is to cast it to a string. It is not to plus quotes. Like, do things that make that are easy to read and easy to understand naively. And again, like, whoever wrote that, they may not know that you can just type string and cast something to a string. One of the problems with the industry right now is that it's being flooded with... The demand is so high, and it's been so high for, I don't know, 5-10 years now. It's just changed the industry. The demand is so high that people don't have time to get trained. They don't have time to learn, simple, basic patterns. And just like they don't have time to learn the fundamentals. That's what's troubling. They don't have time to learn the fundamentals. And so they end up doing weird stuff. Because they see it in Stack Overflow or whatever, and everybody likes to be an engine. Oh, look how strange my code is. Look how I use this thing in a weird way that doesn't make any sense to do. I don't get it. Anyway. And then, this obsession with destructuring imports and... so is that right? It's hard to tell. Okay, find or null. Yeah, that's easy to read now. Arrow functions, like, it doesn't, like this. Yeah, I won't go on that tirade again today. Okay, let's, I'm just going to go through tries, get rid of tries, and then the other thing I'm going to do, okay, I think we got all the tries out of the way. And the other thing I'm going to do, let me check and see if we got any more comments. No comments in chat. Let's see. Okay, last thing is anywhere there's a res.status, I want to get rid of it. So this should just throw an error. Throw errors.create. And then we don't ever want anything to be unknown. This one was 400, so that's a bad request. All right, and this is something where I really, at this point, I can probably just use a regular expression because there's enough of these. And I should save this regular expression so I can use it again in other files. In fact, I already had this regular expression once, and now I don't know where it went. But what we want to do here is basically, I'm going to capture the digits, error, and then we're going to replace this whole thing with throw errors.create, and then I'm going to put in my capture group here. Oh, I need to capture that. And that should do it. So let's go ahead and, whoops. Actually, what I want to get that replaced with is unknown. Unknown. And then I should replace that like this. Yes, that's correct. Okay, so let's do this one. and then do the same thing. And then we want to replace 404 with not found. Whoops. That's the only one? Okay. And we're going to replace 403 with forbidden. These are errors that we have defined in our, we have a local errors package. Okay. Let me see if there's any more res dot other than res dot result. Res.json. Oh, whoops. I need to go fix that in the other one. I accidentally called res.json when I should be calling res.result. Res.result is our own custom thing. Yeah. Okay, I'll change that in the other file too. And I'll do a whip commit on this because I need to go and I don't have time to properly review it from the changes I made. I think I've made the changes that I wanted to make right now, but I just don't have time to properly review it. So nix the try catches, separate out, this was the core thing. I'm just trying to upgrade files as I work through them. So, you know, there's 200 files that need to be gone through and audited, and just need to do them one at a time as I have the inclination. But the main thing was, it used to be rec.accountID, and now we're separating out rec.user for real logged in users and rec.form for guest users that are coming in through a form that they are assigned to complete. And that doesn't really do much in some of these functions. It doesn't make any difference, but it makes a difference at the gatekeeper level of being able to know that I'm handling things correctly and I'm not cross-contaminating different privilege types. I'm making it less likely for there to be web-based privilege escalation. Okay, so let me take a look at the files that have changed. Let me see. Actually, I should be able to just do res.json and see where I've made these mistakes. That one is fine. This one is my mistake. That one is fine. That one is fine, I think. This is a mistake that I made. So res.result is our wrapper. Okay, so let's see. That might be... No, that's nothing. Okay, let me look at res.json again. Okay, object.assign success payload. Yeah, this is where res.result is defined. So this is what res.result does. It adds a success true and a payload data. And actually, I'd like to get rid of that payload data. I don't know why we need it. I do like the success true to indicate that it's successful. Oh, I know why we have the payload. We have the payload so that we can have the success true. And there used to be other stuff on there, but we've nixed it mostly. Okay, cool. So that's all good. I'm going to need to review these things more carefully. But which branch am I on? Outside forms? Yeah, this is a good branch to be on. So I'm just going to do whip, and then I'm going to come back, review, and then I might just rebase just to change the commit message to remove the whip. Oh, hello and welcome. I'm just making a commit and I'm about to leave to go pick up a friend from the airport, but feel free to drop me any comments or questions and I will take a look when I am on, because I think I'm going to come on again tonight. I kind of do want to finish this up. I feel like I'm in a good mode. I want to finish this up, but I also have another task, completely unrelated. GameCube homebrew. Somebody's paying me to put them together a hacked GameCube, as it were. And so I was going to go through the process and show the parts and how to find the right things and all that. Okay, but this is security plus refactor. Separate guest from real users. Guest from real user access. And nix, try, catch, promise, etc. Nix, extraneous. Cool. So I'm going to go ahead and push this up to that branch. Okay, good. And by the way, that's push-u origin outside forms. That's how, if I had just created the branch, that's how I push it up. All right, with that, I need to go make a trip to the airport. So thanks for tuning in. Remember, if you like what you like, you get more of what you like. If you'd like to subscribe, go ahead and do so. Just make sure to click the bell for personalized recommendations so that you just get the code stuff, unless you really want everything that I do, which is cool too. I'd be happy to have you. Really appreciate you tuning in. You have an excellent evening. And yeah, check down in the doobly-doo for related and unrelated links, including the Beyond Code channel, the live channel, the Morning Shower Thoughts channel, and there's some gear and stuff like that if you're interested in, like, I don't know, setup or my fancy keyboard. Don't recommend that. Oh, you can't see it. Where is it at? It doesn't matter. I just use it for streaming. It's just an extra. It's a half key. It's like a gamer keyboard, a half keyboard. But I just use it to be able to assign the buttons to be able to do